Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, thank you for inviting me. Really appreciate the invitation and the opportunity to speak to you all about the organization. So as Rachel stated, it is, the longer name of the organization is Gwinnett Parent Coalition to Dismantle the School-to-Prison Pipeline. And Gwinnett STOPP for short, because that's just such a long name. And that's what the school-to-prison pipeline is. Definition. Shout it out.
I guess a lack of positive behavioral supports in the school that cause referrals to juvenile justice system and pave the way for
Anyone else want to add to that?
I mean,
it's probably the revolving door, which means that those who are currently in prison, there's a 65% chance their children who may be in school could also go off to prison. Is that what
or even statistics show that some at-risk children in school, their next stop is going to be prison.
So, formal definition. School-to-prison pipeline, national trend. Children being funneled out of their regular education setting into alternative education settings, as well as the juvenile and criminal justice systems. It primarily impacts children of color, students with disabilities, male, and low-income children. And if you hit every one of those, you are at the highest risk of being in the school-to-prison pipeline. And so according to the 2013-14 Civil Rights Data Collection, who's familiar with the Civil Rights Data Collection? So ocrdata.edu.gov. You want to learn about schools? Go there. But the Civil Rights Data Collection said that 2.8 million children have been suspended out of school nationally. And we have the same issue in Gwinnett. And so students with disabilities, students of color are overrepresented in the school-to-prison pipeline and underrepresented in challenging academic opportunities. And so when children aren't in school, they can't learn. And then in some cases, even when they're in school, they're not going to learn because of the disproportionate impact and how behavior gets looked at in school. And so how does this all happen? Recharacterization of behaviors. And with that recharacterization, we start to find out that things get starting to be coded in a different kind of way. So normal childhood misbehaviors, not the ones we want. However, it is the normal part of growing, learning, experiencing. But in the school-to-prison pipeline end, what we find is school discipline is then recharacterized into something that makes it more criminal. So pushing and shoving is now battery. Somebody taking headphones, that's now theft and robbery. Talking back is disorderly conduct. And so what you will see is, whereas we talk about discipline is about keeping children safe and unwanted behaviors, it's really about this whole criminal path that's being established for children all the way through. And so when we're taking normal misbehaviors from students, and again, I'm not saying that they're wanted behaviors, but they are age-appropriate misbehaviors. When we take that and criminalize it, then we end up on this trajectory. And one suspension increases a child's risk of being in the school-to-prison pipeline or interaction with the criminal justice system by almost tenfold. So that's just one. You think about a child that's repeatedly in it. And so this is the overall impact of what it looks like. More likely to drop out of school, harder to get into the military, harder to get into college. Anybody know about about that college interaction that happens? So let me tell you about that, because the school system will always tell you that this is not a thing. Your college, don't worry about all these discipline infractions we have on your record. We don't send them to the schools. We don't send them to your colleges. Well, there's a counselor recommendation form that gets filled out. And if you read the counselor recommendation form, the first thing it asks the counselor is about your school discipline history. It will be sent over. So they may not send the actual records, but the counselor is writing about it. And it'd be harder if you have a juvenile record, or in Georgia you get charged as an adult at 17. You may not be qualified for financial aid. And so we say that we want people to come back and re-enter and have opportunities. How do you get opportunities when at the federal level, we've taken away the opportunity of furthering their education because now they can't get federal loans? And if they can't get federal loans or federal grants, then how do they afford that education? Where's the opportunity? So false opportunity. Distrust of the police and school officials. Falling behind in class. If you're not in school, you can't learn. Gwinnett County Schools, the largest school system in the state. It's one of the, I believe it's the top 10 or 12 within the country. 1 in 10 children who are educated in the state of Georgia are educated in Gwinnett. So when this problem hits Gwinnett, it's a huge problem, not just for our immediate community, but for our state. And so this came out of the Committees on Education and Workforce from the federal level of Congress. And what it talks about is the unequal access to accelerated programs, the disproportionate impact on discipline. So we're not on the opportunity end, we're on the disopportunity end. If I can create my own words here. I'm the mother of 2 sons. And frequently, my sons were the only ones in AP classes, gifted classes. My son, my youngest one, who was a student with a disability, he was, when we transferred here, we moved here from another state. We moved here from Maryland. And when we moved here, they didn't want to put him in the gifted program. And they said, well, because he has a disability, he can't keep up. He qualified at the 98th percentile level.
Wow.
As I told them, I don't think he's that smart. I think he's smart. I don't think he's that smart. So if your standards are lower than where we came from, and he's at the 98th percentile level, and you're saying he can't keep up, but obviously he's past where you're talking about, what is the problem? And so those are the things that myself as a parent had to fight for both of my boys. My oldest one was being thrown into the school to prison pipeline. They were criminalizing his clothing. And they decided that the fashion police at the school decided that everything he wore was gang attire. And when I pushed back about, but if he's in a gang, he came here and joined. We don't know anything about gangs. We didn't move with a gang. Should I be concerned? Are these schools safe? But what it was is a way of really managing him and who he was as a person. None of the clothing was gang related. He was not in a gang. And I'm happy to say, even though they suspended him over his clothes, they tried to send him to the disciplinary alternative school about his clothes, and he didn't go, because I'm his mom, and it wasn't going to happen. Even though they tried to do that, he's now an adjunct professor, and he ended up getting a full academic ride into college.
Great.
But they wanted him out of the school for his clothing. And so just don't, that recharacterization, think about that. You have to dig deep. What they write versus what it is can be very, very, very different. wants a child in a school like this? Nobody. And Gwinnett STOPP was started because of a couple of busybody parents, myself being one of them, started noticing a trend in Gwinnett County when we're working as volunteer advocates within the community, volunteer education advocates, helping parents navigate school system issues. And so when I first moved here, I've been a volunteer in the schools for many years. My kids were in 8th and 4th grade when we initially moved here. And I should say that young man who then wanted out of gifted because he wouldn't qualify as a student with disability is now a mechanical engineer. So let's throw that out. So I love sharing when they say, how's your voice? Let me tell you how my voice are. And so as we're navigating the system, and I came with a lot of knowledge, and you talk to parents and they start to understand you must know a little more. And so we started helping on opposite ends of the county. We didn't even know each other at the time. And we ended up with a mutual friend who said, y'all are talking about the same stuff. Let me introduce you. And then we started working more as a team. We started helping more and more parents navigate the system, and it stopped being how do I get my child into gifted, or how do I get them in the next level of class, or what other supports are available to help them with their disability. It started turning into more and more just discipline. And as we noticed this trend, we brought the community together, and Gwinnett STOPP was formed. We started looking at data. We started making open records requests. We went around the community talking to different entities, the faith community, whoever would listen. We were everywhere, just talking to folks. We collected a whole lot of information, anecdotal information, and as qualitative and quantitative data. And we found out that Gwinnett really does have a big problem. Gwinnett STOPP was formed, and we got together and talked with the community, and we asked the community, is this a problem you see you want to handle, we should be doing? And they said yes, resounding yes. Fun, interesting thing about the name of the organization, I was one of the people fighting about Gwinnett Parent Coalition to dismantle the school to prison pipeline. It's too long. I got to take a breath after saying it. And so we were thinking about changing the name. And we met with our superintendent, Alvin Wilbanks, and we told him about what we're doing, what we want to do, how we want to move forward. And he came back and said, well, you know what, we'll work with you if you change your name. And so we took it back to the organization, and they said, oh, no, man, change no name. Right. And so I was all prepared to do this battle. But one of the things that was lifted is that the name is not causing a problem. The problem is the problem. And so he saw that name as, to quote him, a personal affront to every educator in Gwinnett County. We did not see it like that. We saw it as just naming the problem. And so we went about doing our work. We wanted to lead, we had a community vision. We wanted the community to be engaged, involved. We wanted the community to lead the work. And so that's what we did. And so our work, I like to say, falls into two buckets. Public education, which is me being out here. We run a parent and leadership institute. We run a youth leadership institute where we train and grow advocates. We do other presentations around the community. We hold workshops. We do a workshop around understanding your student code of conduct. It's called suspension, detention. No, it's not that one. That one is about kids with disabilities. What your student parent handbook didn't really tell you, reading between the lines, there's a lot that's written in there that parents don't read. And should understand. There's a lot that's not written in there, and we've learned it through experience. And so in that, fulfilling that work on the public education end, on the advocacy policy change end, We do a whole lot of things too. We work on that at the state, local, national levels, changing policies that impact school to prison pipeline. And so this is an example of some of our local work. We are a member of the original committee that created a tiered discipline code. When they came after my son, it was not tiered. But one of our members was part of that committee that sat there and tiered it, which meant now not everything gets you to a disciplinary tribunal. Only some offenses get you there. And that was an important first step. We also were responsible for getting it denoted in the student code of conduct of when your child could have an interaction with the police over an infraction. Before it was just guess. And so we had them indicate which ones were. And then we went back and got it reduced by 33% because a lot of those did not need any police engagement. Our school resource officers have contact quota. Who knew that? We found it reading through their policies. We got that removed. And so that's some of the things that we've done on the local level. On the state level, we successfully advocated for the inclusion of school discipline in our school report cards, which is the CCRPI. We also participated in various reviews of alternative school policies to kind of tighten them up to ensure that children are being educated if they are going to be shifted into these alternative environments. And we do a monthly convening where we bring in folks statewide to talk about data and policies and how we can impact it. And then on the national level, me with my boyfriend, so I wish. So on the national level, we were very instrumental in getting in the parent-friendly and child-friendly things that are in the current federal law around education, which is the Every Student Succeeds Act. It is now the new marketing name for No Child Left Behind, which was the old marketing name. You know, every time they reauthorize it, it gets a marketing name. There was the School Discipline Initiative. We were very involved in that, traveling around the country with the U.S. Department of Ed, talking to other school systems and parents and community about how we can shift out discipline from being more restorative to something away from the punitive nature that most things are right now. We also were instrumental in increasing what is collected within the civil rights data collection, and I encourage you to look at that. And then just a list of who we work with, like everybody. So you can add your name there too. Come in and join us for doing this work. And so as I said, we need partners to do it. We utilize partners at every level, locally, nationally, statewide, however we get them. And those various partners also help us in driving the campaigns that we do. I want to leave you with this quote. It is doubtful that any child may reasonably be expected to succeed in life if he is denied the opportunity of an education. They can't do it. They can't do it. It's up to us to help them. And so this is how you can reach us. Feel free to reach out. We have a website, www.gwinnettstop.org. We have, if you want to learn more about School to Prison Pipeline, we have an interactive game up there called What's My Pipeline. Feel free to play it. It's a Jeopardy style game. You can play it one person or several people. We usually use it in a workshop. So it's a lot of fun to play, but a lot of information. You can follow us on social media. We're on mostly Facebook and Twitter. We have an Instagram, yeah. And one of our teams made us a Snapchat. I don't know what they're doing over there. But they're doing something with it, so if you're on Snapchat, you can do that too. But happy to take any questions. Yes?
There's a law constantly have shortened the net system, and my reading was followed nationwide. One of the things I think through this is rigid rules and a lack of ability to exercise discretion on the part of administrators. Zero tolerance policies and very rigid rules. Where does Gwinnett stand in terms of the policies that you're trying to address? Do they bake in some level of discretion on the part of administrators where they have flexibility to take into account the nuances of various disciplinary knowledge?
So I'm going to say our discipline code is written with a whole lot of discretion and too much discretion. And unfortunately, it is that discretion that when you look up what kids are being suspended for or disciplined for is for subjective offenses, disorderly conduct, insubordination, talking back. Those are the highest numbers. And when you pull the data in Gwinnett and statewide, you will see that's overwhelming the case. We did a campaign where we had them segregate out the data too to make it even more known to folks and visible to you. But our disciplinary code has so much discretion, so now you're setting up for different treatment. And different treatment means Johnny may not get suspended for the same thing that Jamal did. Jamal suspended. And that's what we see a lot of in Gwinnett. You may have seen an article in the newspaper where they're going to relook at the policies, but I'm going to say out there first, because I sat with them 2 years ago with them supposedly doing that. And so I don't feel like they're an honest broker in this process. And I don't think they're willing to look at it holistically. And so there's a whole lot of discretion. There's way too much discretion, and they're not accounting for cultural differences, but they're not accounting for a whole lot of things. There's nothing restorative in our disciplinary policy. It is all about, every problem looks like a nail because the only tool I have is a hammer.
Right.
And so that's how it gets dealt with.
How are you teaching the parents that?
A variety of ways. So lots of parents find us when their student is in a disciplinary tribunal, and we provide some support. We don't have the resources to do individual, representation or advocacy, but what we can do is give people a plan on how to move through it and what to expect. We've been known to do the bus stop run, where we hit a bus stop and circle up parents there and talk to them. We have done some outreach at the school, but again, we haven't changed our name, so we're not allowed to disseminate our information through the normal school processes. And we're not changing the name. Yes?
We work with homeless families at the Salvation Army, and it's not a week that goes by that we don't see families and children negatively impacted by this. And it just seems so omnipresent. I mean, we're wondering if you see it as cultural in the school system.
I see it at every level. So you see it as cultural. Even when you see that the students and the teachers are coming from the same cultural background, the teachers don't see themselves as part of the students. And so when you don't see yourselves as inclusive and you see everything as the other, you can treat it as the other. So I see it as cultural on a lot of different levels. I see it as an issue of not getting the ongoing proper training around cultural competency, cultural awareness, understanding what resonates with people and what doesn't. There are a few zero tolerance policies, and then there are the ones that are implemented as just zero tolerance policies. Gwinnett has thankfully eliminated a whole lot of the zero tolerance in our disciplinary code. But what we find is now the practice is just zero tolerance. And again, that whole otherism really drives a lot of things that happens.
What do you see as the best way to sort of help a parent in that situation?
And they put me out. I think the best way to help parents is always through education, knowledge, and awareness. And then that camaraderie of understanding it's not just you. And that, if we come together as parents and we can start to work on things collectively. And that's always the answer within the community, what we've done. I'm really, really good. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.